afternoon, Rovers. I'm Pam Jordan, Director of the Department of Aging and Disabilities, and as part of our Information and Technology Week and Slam the Scam campaign, we're going to present some resources on how to identify and report common scams. After our musical introduction by Joe DeValio, you will see some examples of scams by the FBI. Please know that these will be real stories by scam survivors and at times real audio from scammers. Their stories, while emotional, are important learning tools to help keep us all safe online. Afterwards, you'll see a short clip on how to report scams to the FBI. Additionally, please feel free to report any scams to the Maryland Attorney General at marylandattorneygeneral.gov. We hope you enjoy today's video, today's riddle, and the rest of our IT week. Thank you.
I was walking along, minding my business, when out of that orange-colored sky, flash, bam, alakazam, wonderful you came by. I was humming a tune, drinking in sunshine, when out of that orange-colored view, flash, bam, alakazam, I gotta look at you. One look and eye your timber, watch out for flying glass. Cause the ceiling fell in and the bottom fell out. I went into a spin and I started to shout, I've been hit. This is it. I was walking along, minding my business, when love came and hit me in the eye. Flash, bam, alakazam, out of an orange-colored sky. Look and eye your timber, watch out for flying glass. Cause the ceiling fell in and the bottom fell out. I went into a spin and I started to shout, I've been hit. This is it. I was walking along, minding my business, when love came and hit me in the eye. Flash, bam, alakazam, out of an orange-colored purple stripe. Pretty green polka dot sky, flash, bam, alakazam, and goodbye. Oh my.
It's truly sad that an unscrupulous individual can convince a trusting person to invest their life savings in a fraud that results in them losing everything that they've worked so hard for in their lives.
The frauds we see in Utah that are the biggest problems to Utah investors are typically what we call offering frauds, and they can be of several different varieties. Probably the most notorious right now are what are called Ponzi schemes.
Whatever the story is about how money's being made, whether they're investing in real estate, whether it's trading foreign currencies, whether it's investing in antiques or concert tickets. We've seen all of those. But the hallmark of the Ponzi scheme is that you use money from new investors to pay off your old investors and, of course, put a bunch in your pocket at the same time. And there's no real income being generated by the underlying business.
Ponzi schemes always collapse eventually, and it's typically because you run out of newer investors.
If you can't bring enough new money in to pay off your old investors, it's like a house of cards. It collapses, falls in on itself, and everybody that invested is left holding the bag.
Affinity fraud is when someone you know, for example, a church member, a coworker, or a friend, takes advantage of you in an investment fraud scheme.
He was a religious man, so he says, and he really put on the I am just so guided by the Spirit. And I know I'm here to help you. And just trust me. He just had the right words to say. And I was single. I was a widow. He knew he knew what to say to me to make me think everything was going to be great. And so I did everything in my power to get the money, and I gave it to him without even getting a contract signed.
Affinity fraud is really not a type of fraud. It's more a way to market your fraud. So any kind of scam that a con artist is putting together, you use affinity fraud to find investors. I think of it more in terms of friends and family fraud. That's an easier term to recognize.
Affinity frauds are fairly common here in Utah. Usually here they're directed at members of the LDS Church, and that's because the investment solicitations come through church connections.
Because of the trusting relationships they have with other church members, unscrupulous people can take advantage of that. But affinity fraud is not confined to just the LDS Church. Any other church member can become a victim of affinity fraud for the same reasons.
We see affinity frauds in all kinds of varieties. They can be directed at ethnic groups or racial groups, other kinds of religious groups. And they're certainly not confined to Utah. We see them all over the country.
People tend to not do the due diligence and research they should do because they think, well, this is a person I know. I go to church with him. He's been my neighbor for 15 years. Whatever the circumstances are, I work with this person. I know him. He's good for it. I can trust him.
I think a lot of these scam investments are sold by people who are great salesmen, quite frankly. And they can be charming. They can use existing relationships they may have with investors. I had one defendant in a case many years ago who said, "Give me a story and I can sell it to anybody." And he was right.
He had done it enough, and I think taken enough people's money and that's how he lived. And he had a great big home. He lived a really good lifestyle.
If an individual asks you to keep the investment secret, that should send up red flags. If the individual drives a fancy car, lives in a large home, and makes a point of showing you all of these things, don't necessarily believe that this individual is a sound investor. He may be a shyster that's trying to take your money.
And so when a promoter comes to you and says, hey, I've got the answer. I can make you 3% a month, 4% a month, 5% a month, whatever it is, guaranteed with little or no risk. They're lying to you. There is no such investment. Risk, reward always go together. If you want high rewards, you're taking on high risk.
I think the maxim buyer beware is appropriate. Individuals who want to invest their money have to complete their due diligence. Research the investment firm you're planning on investing your money with. Research the individual you're planning on investing your money with.
Check out what's being offered through as many independent sources as you can. Just don't take the statements or materials given to you by the person selling you the security as truth.
You know, when it comes to fraud, I think the best advice probably came from, well, it's what my grandmother used to say to me, and probably many grandmothers have said to many people through the years. If something sounds too good to be true, I wouldn't say it probably is, I would say it is too good to be true. When it comes to investing, there is no free lunch out there.
Losing the $35,000 has been devastating for me. I refinanced my condo. I live on a set income. I'm not afraid to let anybody know. Don't invest in something that you don't know is a sure thing. Don't trust the person that keeps telling you everything that you want to hear.
Initially, he would read my wall, I would read his wall, we would post things. He would like things, I would like things. Then it got to, we would just share emails. We started sharing pictures. I knew that just based on the conversations that we'd had, that he was someone that I would like to meet. I felt a real soul connection with him right away. We sang to each other, we prayed with each other, we'd talk about what happened at church on Sunday. There wasn't an immediate talk about getting together. He was trying to finish up a job in California, and he needed some money to help finish that job up. And so I sent him. I thought about it long and hard, I prayed about it, and I've always been a very giving person. And I figured if I had money in the account, that I could send him some money, and he promised to have it back within 24, 48 hours. And I thought, could do that, no one would ever know, and I'd be okay. But, you know, one thing kept happening after another. He'd need more money because he was coming in over budget. Things didn't get done on time. You know, he needed a lawyer. He had to take a money loan, and it needed to be paid back. Part of me thinks that he's gonna come through and pay me back what he owes me, and, you know, swoop in here, be the knight in shining armor. But it's just so absurd that there's a big part of me that doesn't believe that. And that is where this is all so pitiful, is because if he's a scammer, I've been so brainwashed and I've lost everything. It's all I had. It's any inheritance that I could have passed on to my daughter. The loss of money was my future, and knowing that I wouldn't have to work, that I could just make it to the ripe old age of whatever and be perfectly comfortable. The loss that I've suffered emotionally, I think, has even been more traumatic. I can't even imagine a man, a person that could be this bad. So I think of him, I can't think of him that way. My mind keeps me from thinking of him that way, because there can't be a man in this world that could be this horrible, to have purposefully done what he's done to me. I don't want this to happen to anybody else. If they're real, and if the love is real, they're going to want to see you as soon as possible. I mean, it's been 2.5 years, and I still haven't seen his face.
Romance schemes usually involve a perpetrator assuming an online identity, and it's for the purpose of tricking victims. So what they do is they search out vulnerable women, generally speaking. Men can be targets as well, but it's generally women, usually above the age of 50. Anyone is subject to this. If you're online, if you're using the internet, as long as you have money and you're willing to give it, then you could be a target. They'll hunt through these various networking sites, and they'll find somebody who may be a good target, and they use what the victim has put on their profile page. So you have to be very careful about what you post, because they'll use that to manipulate the victim. And they'll develop a relationship very quickly. They'll try to endear themselves to the victims. They'll say whatever the victim wants to hear, and they will often propose marriage quickly. So they develop this intense relationship, and they do seek out people who may be divorced or widowed. So they're people who are vulnerable, who may be desperately looking for love. And again, they will manipulate that victim and that endear themselves and gain their trust, and then they'll start asking for money. The perpetrator will state that they have an emergency, that they need money for a job maybe overseas, that they've have some type of medical emergency and they need funds. So they promise that they'll repay the victim as soon as the victim sends them money, but the victims never receive their money back. From what we can tell, these are usually criminal organizations that work together. And once a victim becomes a victim in that they send money, they will oftentimes be placed on what's called a sucker list, and their names and identities are shared with other criminals, and they will be targeted for future recruitment. I always tell people when we try to spread the word, if you don't know somebody, don't send them money. Try to research that person's profile that you're getting involved with, and try to do some due diligence. But you know, we're all human. We all make mistakes, and I just hope victims who have fallen prey to this can learn and hopefully not enter into another scam. We have seen victims become victimized again. So I just ask that victims try to learn from the experience and try to share their experience with others so that other people can learn from their experience and not become victimized as well.
This is Chief Investigator Sharon Wright. Am I speaking with?
Yes.
Again, my name is Investigator Sharon Wright. I am investigating a criminal complaint that has been forwarded here in the office against you by Cash Express. We are in the process of proceeding against you legally. Now, prior to forwarding this to your local authorities and returning them issuing a warrant for your arrest, I did want to contact you, get a statement, and find out exactly what were your intentions.
But what is this? I'm not understanding. What is this?
Cash Express is stating that you did walk into their facility to obtain a payday loan. You did give them your personal checking information along with a date as to when they can extract the funds to be paid back for the loan. Once they went to receive the funds were not available. Now, they did make several attempts in trying to contact you to rectify it. They sent you to 3 different collection agencies. They also made the attempts in trying to rectify it, received no resolution. So they did transfer your file to my office, asking that we go ahead and proceed legally. Now, prior to forwarding it, like I say, to your local authorities, we did want to contact you, get a statement, find out exactly what was going on, and what are your intentions on trying to rectify it now that you are aware of the issue here.
Okay, so rectify means what?
Well, I mean, of course, to hold it from going legal, you know they want the money.
Okay.
However, you have
what amount is this?
You have a balance of $819.04.
Okay, at this moment right now, I'm not working.
Okay. Well, see, with that being said, I will have no choice but to forward it to Los Angeles County. However, Los Angeles County will issue you with a warrant for your arrest. It will be for depository check fraud as well as theft by deception.
Is there any payments that I can do?
They're willing to set you up on a payment arrangement. However, they require that you come up with a down payment of at least half of your balance. And then what we'll do is make an arrangement with you on the remaining portion of the balance. However, that will go ahead and get it put on hold. It will avoid all legal actions from being pursued.
Okay, so let me do that then, because I don't want none of the... Because right now I'm actually pregnant, so I can't be going through stuff like this.
Right. Hold for one moment.
And I'm actually 8 months. I turn 8 months next week. So
hold for one moment. Let me talk with the attorney, okay?
Okay.
Okay, that's fine. Go ahead. Grab your checking information, and you let me know when you're ready. I'm going to have them send you out a letter. Once you receive that letter, you have 2 hours to contact me back. If I do not hear from you within those 2 hours, at that time I will take it as a refusal to rectify on a voluntarily basis. I will go ahead and sign off on it. The attorney will go ahead and at that time forward it to Los Angeles County for a warrant to be issued for your arrest.
I'm not trying to say that I'm not going to pay it. I'm not going to pay it. I'm just,
Ma'am,
I want to know that I'm going to do this correctly because I don't want it to backfire me and then you come and tell me another thing.
Ma'am.
So...
It's debit, credit, or check, whichever way works best for you.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
And good luck to you.
I get more calls than you would anticipate, and this one sounded like I had won something, congratulations and so forth.
The total value of the award is about about 72 million.
72?
$72 million. You're the first place winner. And the reason why they selected you to give you this amount, because I do some of your background check. I know that you was a judge, you was a lawyer, you was in the U.S. Navy, Homeland Security, the basketball team, and all of those stuff. I do your background checks.
In this particular case, I think my wife heard me having the conversation, and she was protesting in her own sweet way. My playing around with somebody like that, don't string him along. Later, I don't know how the conversation turned sour, but it did. And at that point, he shifted gears, and instead of sweet talk, he began to threaten her.
Hey, I know you're playing around, right? You know what I'm going to do? I won't call you back. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill your husband. I'm going to set your house on fire because you seem to be playing around and you doesn't know who am I. So listen, I'm not giving you any more warning. I'm just going to send out my guys and listen. Anytime you put back yourself in Washington, D.C., you'll be killed. Look, a sniper, I know you're home. You see, you live, the place where you're home at, you live at a very lonely place. And the moment you arrive, I'm going to put a shot in your head. I'm going to burn your house down. I don't play.
As time went along, I learned how significant the victimization of older people was, and that worried me. I was older myself enough to be sympathetic with how older people without my maybe background experience might react to situation. The average older person doesn't get caught in a bind where they're the screws are turning on them. They think something good is happening. They want to believe it. They find out it's not going to happen. They've often paid some money in order to get something that was explained was needed in order to go take the next step and to get bigger sums of money coming their way. Older people like to think they're still valuable for one reason or another, regardless of what they've done. It was a game, whatever it was, they were able to be convinced that they were about to get something good to show they were still in the money.
Hiya! Queen of All Knowledge here, reminding you, creeps out there on the internet hack, scam, and trick savvy cyber users every day. But we can fight back. It's as easy as IC3. If you're a victim of online crime, don't give up. Visit IC3, the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center. Your tips help the FBI track down cyber criminals around the world. Report your crime to www.ic3.gov today.
So before we get to today's riddle, let's go over what we've learned. First, be careful what you post online. Scammers can use these details to better understand and target you. Next, beware if an individual seems too perfect or quickly asks you to leave a dating service or a social media site to communicate directly. Next, never send money to anyone you have only communicated with online or by phone. Next, be wary of unscrupulous debt collectors and debt collection tactics. Look out for people promising investments that sound too good to be true, or those that ask you to keep the investment a secret. And finally, remember, report potential scams to the Maryland Attorney General and to the FBI at www.ic3.gov. So thank you for watching and learning along with us. Don't forget to check out our riddle and the answer in the comments below. Come back tomorrow to find out the answer, and have a great day.